that our friend connected online can hear us, and probably they can also see us. With Benedetta, we decided to organize this brainstorming because we know that the issues of sustainable development is a very core issues in the 2024 convention and also for the next 20 years of the convention. So when we decided to organize this meeting, we also decided to have a brainstorming. That means that you can take the floor without any prefix of the speech. You can follow the debate, you can create the debate, you can share your experience. So this is not a seminar, not a conference. Unfortunately, we asked for table for all people and to stay around the table in the same way, but unfortunately it was not possible, but we have air condition. So this is very good. And and pizza, and we really thanks to our Italian friend who decided to live here in Casane. Thank you very much. Yes, thank you. Also, he prepared a wonderful Italian ice cream in the city center of Casane, the main road.
Cazzungula.
Please, Benedetta,
In Cazzungula.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, it's not very nice. So. And there is baobab ice cream. So, well, thank you very much again. We know that several discussion and several expert meeting was organized by UNESCO, by you, by other UNESCO chairs colleagues. In the past year was promoted several meetings on these issues, especially after the modification of the operational directives. Now the idea is try to take all of these materials all together and try to think all together about the next 20 years for the convention. And how to show in a new way, in which way living heritage can contribute to the sustainable development. So the idea of this meeting is start today a permanent brainstorming that, if you want, we can continue online at the end of this committee, and we will see which will be the result of our brainstorming. I don't know if Benedetta, you want to say something. So, if you agree, we can start with our friends connected online. They are from Brazil to New Zealand, so there is a different time zone. So I would like to invite Umberto Cunhafilo. He is from the University of Fortaleza in the north of Brazil. If you can hear us, you can take the floor. Then we can ask to Ben and to Letizia, and then we open the debate and with your speech. Umberto?
Good morning. Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. We cannot see you. I don't know why, but we can hear you.
Yes, I can see everyone here, and I think there's a problem of internet. I'm speaking from Fortaleza in Brazil. Now it's 8:03 a.m. I prepared something in 5 minutes. When Paul Crutzen in 1995 popularized the word Antrophocene, he could have been crowing the presence of the human being on Earth, positioning him as the protagonist of a geological era that could be the happiest given the rationality with which we are endowed. However, he observed that this era is characterized by terrible things, such as severe biodiversity mitigation, alarming climate change and disfigurement and standardization of ecosystems. Certainly, these scenarios seemingly contradictory, partly stems from the idea of development, but unfortunately a development based on immediacy, individualism, and the false conscientiousness that humans can reign despotically over nature. This alarming situation prompted reflection and action to identify the breaking point between humans and the environment, as well as to identify the cause of this disastrous divorce. Among the international measures, particularly in the cultural field, is the adoption of important documents such as declarations and conventions on cultural diversity and the safeguard of intangible cultural heritage. Among the premises of the Declaration on Cultural Diversity 2002 is that the process of globalization facilitated by the rapid evolution of new informations and communications technology, despite posing a challenge to cultural diversity, creates conditions for a renewed dialogue between cultures and civilizations. In turn, item 14 of General Guidelines for implementing the UNESCO Declaration on Cultural Diversity prescribes that one should respect and protect traditional knowledge systems, especially those of indigenous peoples, recognize the contribution of traditional knowledge to environmental protection and natural resource management, and promote synergies between modern science and local knowledge. Certainly, this is the broadest channel of communication between legal documents on cultural diversity and those of the safeguarding of intangible cultural heritage. The Convention for ICH, for example, determines that only intangible cultural heritage that is compatible with existing international human rights instruments, as well as with the requirement of mutual respect between communities, groups, and individuals, and sustainable development will be taken into account. The extensive multi-level network of recognition and safeguarding of intangible cultural heritage is an effective contribution to mitigate the negative effects of the so-called Anthropocene era, as many cultural intangible heritage transcend country borders. Others restores affectionate relationship between humanity and the planet. In addition to those ICH recognizes for fostering humanity respect for all the living beings, including fauna and flora. Those evaluating the living heritage of humanity is an important element of awareness in the pursuit of a good life in community. This behavior has the potential to reverse the critical negative trend that currently characterizes this Anthropocene era. This is my contribution. Thank you. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes.
Yes.
I think it's Leticia now.
Yes, I don't know if I can take the. Can I make my intervention, my contribution? So
Yes,
let's
please.
go. So many thanks for this invitation, and I consider this topic especially strategic. I mean, Pierluigi is correctly has outlined the principle that has inspired probably this brainstorming. I consider that is a very good idea to have a permanent group working on this, as I consider this topic extremely strategic in terms of reflection on what we can be the real contribution of intangible cultural heritage, and more widely, the contribution on cultural heritage in the relationship with sustainable development goals. Finally, the relationship between intangible cultural heritage and sustainable development have been and are at the very center of most recent debate, and a multidisciplinary paradigm articulating personal and communitarian issues and crossing anthropological and economic insights as an opportunity for observing local and global processes and frictions, and in safeguarding and valorization processes, as well as in specific impact that the knowledge practice systems in different rural and natural contexts have on the territories and communities, and in the main framework of a political ecology criticism. Let's think, for example, just in these days, transhumance have been added with many elements, how much and how long this element can be an evidence of the concern about sustainable development goals and intangible cultural heritage safeguard and valorization is in this kind of a cultural asset. We encounter local embedded traditions, knowledge practices systems, and ecosystemic services, conservation of water, conservation of grassland, and I think also all the cooperation that we can have, for example, with the meanwhile process of the International Year for Rangeland Pastoralism of the United Nations in 2026. So we encounter very important assets that can be a real line of reflection, of collective reflection among the valorization and safeguard of biodiversity, of intangible cultural heritage, of ecological maintains, and at the same time on valorization of the cultural heritage and biodiversity. But I consider the intertwining of social anthropological knowledge and the economic consideration applied to sustainability and biocultural heritage management especially emerged from the fieldwork and in the framework of intangible cultural heritage list in the last decade. Let's think, for example, to the Mediterranean diet nomination that in some terms have been the first path toward this kind of attention. And basing on these theoretical approaches and critical methodologies, the concrete articulations between environmental protection and reduction of waste and collective soil and other primary resource consumption should be considered as a part of a wider discourse on heritagization of practices of nature and rural conservation. A special attention to more or less sustainable individual behaviors, for example, has been analogously deserved by the wider interdisciplinary range of sustainability science, aiming to critically define the point of interconnection between global transition and dynamics of transformation. And I consider that we have to push ahead a sort of holistic approach to heritage and sustainable development, deeply entangled with a multidisciplinary criticism, for example, on rural development, social innovation in agriculture, respect for the environment vis-à-vis the demands of an increasingly growing population. So we have a constellation of individuals' behaviors, sociocultural orientations of movements, such as, for example, environmentalists, animal rights activists, sovereignties, deniers and revisionists of environmental problems that offer a range of possible, very differentiated responses to the crucial issues of global sustainability, one, health, and the quality of life and its deep entanglements with cultural heritage concern and issues. Just some proposition for contributing to the debate that we hope having today and in the next opportunities of confrontation. I consider that heritage processes in the Anthropocene are encompassed in a cross-cutting framework organized around three main axes. Well, is my proposal just to start to discuss. On one hand, awareness and responsibility. Said environmental awareness and responsible consumption, exploitation of natural resources as an individual ability, but also as a product of intangible cultural heritage set of knowledge practice system, as a sign of political agencies of communities at the local level, which is, for example, partially addressed by the Sustainable Development Goals 12. Second, local knowledge safeguard and sustainable heritage valorization and tourism as a contemporary form of promoting territories and leveraging local agricultures without destroying their traditional practices and land, other resources, uses, for example, and sharing, and without dismissing their social and economic productive balance. Third, social and individual impact in green transition, led and implemented by rural development policies, tendentially or at least officially designed and directed to the needs and urgency of community. So how the policies impact and how the policies on cultural heritage can leverage the attention and awareness about disentanglements between valorization of culture and cultural heritage and sustainability. Finally, I think that beyond the essentially rhetorical and deconstructionist approach to sustainable development and biodiversity conservation and enhancement, the more radical claim to responsibility and agency in the management of the heritagization process is strongly requested, as well as attention to quality, fairness, traceability of environmental practices, food productions supported as an expression of individual agency on one hand, but also of public engagement against conflicts and frictions between agriculture, distribution, and control, for example, to access to food for all, as a matter, let's say, of peace, justice, and strong institutions. So just to leave on the floor some suggestions to the debate. Thank you very much.
I think I'm next. Can everyone hear me? Thumbs up if you can hear me.
Yes.
Yes. I must say I have a bad case of imposter syndrome coming after Umberto and Letizia. You sounded like Nobel Prize winners. So those were incredible speeches. So anyway, kia ora. I'm gonna kick off by doing a little bit of a Maori greeting for everyone. Ko Ben Sullivan toku ingoa. That means my name is Ben Sullivan. No Ingarangi Okutipuna. That means my ancestors are from England. Ke te nohuaki tamaki makoto e Aotearoa. That means I live in Auckland, New Zealand. So thank you for inviting me to participate in this symposium to share some insights into challenges facing New Zealand when it comes to protecting our country's rich and diverse heritage, particularly our Indigenous Māori heritage. As I'm sure some of you probably know, New Zealand isn't a party to the UNESCO ICH Convention. And back in 2011, working with Benedetta, I wrote a paper which looked at the reasons why New Zealand has abstained from the convention. I think a lot of people overseas think that New Zealand is a very progressive country when it comes to its Indigenous heritage. So writing this paper really looked at why it was that the ICH Convention hadn't been brought into, I guess, our legislation. So I recently reread the paper in preparation for this meeting, and I wanted to share with you what I wrote in closing. So I said, whilst several social, political, and logistical reasons have been cited as preventing New Zealand from becoming a party to the 2003 convention, it's undeniable the strategic tools already in place will continue to observe the convention's principles and will not prevent constructive dialogue between New Zealand and UNESCO in the future. Now, the sad reality is that I don't think I can actually make that same statement today. In the last few weeks, a new coalition government in New Zealand has come into power that a lot of people believe poses a threat to the safeguarding of our Indigenous Māori heritage. Most New Zealand legislation integrates references to principles of Te Reti o Waitangi, which is the Treaty of Waitangi. This is an agreement which was signed in 1840 between the British Crown, so New Zealand's colonists, and Maori. The principles embedded in the treaty are fundamental to ensuring that New Zealand laws recognise and honour Maori interests. However, our new government intends to pursue a number of policies that potentially erode or are detrimental to those interests. For example, the government has agreed to a bill that, if passed into law, will remove references to the treaty from certain statutes. Some of these references to the treaty have been integrated in New Zealand law since the 1970s, and they are now looking at removing them. The government is also supporting the removal of te reo Māori from government departments. So the Māori language, which I shared with you earlier with my introduction, te reo, it's considered a taonga, or what we call a Māori treasure. It's also an official language of New Zealand. So many New Zealand government departments incorporate Māori in their names as a way of promoting the language. The removal of te reo is a significant step back for Māori. I also worry about the future challenges facing Māori interests in New Zealand under the current government. The protection of Indigenous rights has long been a socio-political consideration for New Zealand, with lots of support for projects and initiatives at a community level, as well as through legislative intervention. So it's really disappointing to see a political shift that indicates resistance towards promoting Indigenous heritage here in New Zealand. And it certainly appears to challenge many of the principles underpinning the ICH Convention. So, look, it's not all doom and gloom. The good news is that there is support for Māori, and there's vocal opposition to the changes, particularly from our opposition political parties. In fact, this week, thousands of protesters across the country marched against the policies. These policies, Māori say, will unravel decades of Indigenous progress. Today, in fact, New Zealand's Māori king issued a royal proclamation, which is an incredibly rare step, calling for a national hui, or what we call a hui is an assembly, calling for a national hui for all Māori in New Zealand to unite against what he considers divisive and unhelpful rhetoric. So in addition to that opposition, look, we also have a lot of energetic advocacy at a grassroots level in New Zealand. And this is why initiatives like the Play Festival, which Francesco's about to talk to you on shortly, that's why initiatives like that are fundamental in helping foster cultural expression within New Zealand and really speaking out about protecting at-risk Indigenous heritage. So, look, I'd like to sit here and reassure you that New Zealand is a progressive benchmark for policies and mechanisms and laws that uplift its Indigenous communities, the Indigenous community being a very large one here. These communities have been historically marginalized and overrepresented in all the worst social and health statistics. But clearly we have a lot of work to do, which is why the work of UNESCO and people like yourself and the learnings from this symposium, that's why they're so important to map the road forward for us. So thank you for listening. I'm sorry I can't hang around to listen to all of you speak. It's the middle of the night here, but yeah, I think Benedetta's going to share my contact details. So if any of you would like to reach out or have any questions, then please do so.
Thank you, Ben. Can everybody hear me? All good? Thank you.
Yes.
So I guess I am next. Myself, just like Ben, I come from New Zealand, and I'm going to introduce myself with a pepeha, which is the Maori introduction. Kia ora tātou, no Rome Italia ho, ko Francesco Micarelli tauki ingoa, kei te noho au ki ta maki makoro Aotearoa. Greetings to all. My name is Francesco Micarelli. I was born in Rome, and I live now in New Zealand, Auckland, since 14 years. I had wrote a bit of a speech for this. I had prepared something for these 5 minutes, but hearing you all, I thought I might just go, allow me to wing a bit of my speech to you. A few words resonated from what all of you said before me. Thank you very much for your introductions, and thank you for having me in this symposium. First of all, I would like to offer my witnessing as an immigrant to New Zealand, starting with the word grassroots that Ben just mentioned. I'm going to give you a different picture. Of course, Ben rightfully represented what is happening in New Zealand with regard to the supporting and the safeguarding of ICH. My position, I work and I'm a director of a company, social enterprise that is promoting ICH, intangible heritage protection, and at the same time TSG, traditional sports and games, as a vehicle for intercultural integration and diversity. We do organize an event that is called Play Festival. This event is mainly provided with the collaboration of Maori Iwi tribes. Maori, they have a very strong cultural heritage. Listening to what Letizia was saying earlier, came to mind how Maori games are not actually games just because they play, but their games are actually ways to transfer ancient wisdom and knowledge that is part of the way they intend life, sustainable way of living to be put in practice. We work with people who are not simple play providers. They are actually Maori elders who transfer models of living that actually incorporate everything that we've been talking so far. The 3 points that Letizia was mentioning: awareness, local knowledge safeguard, social and individual impact. All of that is already baked into ancestral knowledge and the wisdom that tribes like Maori bring forward. So I came from Rome, actually a city that is synonym of one of great civilization of the past, and actually coming over here to New Zealand, invited by Maori, I realized how they can be an example for their great effort to keep this intangible heritage alive as a way to rebalance this Antrophocene era that we are living right now. This is not about, so I'm offering you this grassroots view because it's fresh. What I want to say is that New Zealand heritage is extremely rich. New Zealand has got 5 million people. 20% are Maori. Another 20% are people like me who were born in another country. So we decided to go to New Zealand and live in New Zealand. So our Play Festival has got Maori and Pacifica cultures. And at the same time, we host 12 other countries representing their ICH, their intangible cultural heritage at that event. The good news is that, again, grassroots, local institutions are supporting these efforts, so that our event is supported by Auckland Council, is funded by Sports New Zealand, that has got a delegation to traditional sports and games, and is also supported by the Ministry of for Ethnic Communities. What we are endeavoring to do is to open up to you. Despite New Zealand not subscribing to the convention, what I want to tell you is that there is a strong desire, need, and will to connect, to participate to an international event, to make ourselves heard. I am speaking here for the iwi who hasn't been here, like Ngati Fatwa, the tribe that has got rightful guardianship over Auckland territory. And I've been meeting them today. They allow me to say that they are in support of ICH safeguarding, and they are willing to participate in any capacity and form they can. So what we want to do is represent ourselves into these opportunities, but at the same time reach out to other places like the islands in the Pacific, and try to build a network in Asia Pacific, which I understand for ICH and for traditional sports games is not necessarily been strong so far. And if with your help we can do that and make a bit of a difference for these countries over here, and who knows, worldwide, that would be awesome. So my last final thought for this intervention is that New Zealand New Zealand intangible cultural heritage is extremely rich and is rooted in the pre-Anthropocene epochs. It is extremely valid for today's problems. There's sustainable way of living that have been experienced before that are applicable. I totally get that there is, we have problems that were not present a long time ago, but from a cultural perspective, we do have sustainable ways of living that we have experienced in the past. The point is that we believe that all this heritage can be a successful way to rebalance our footprint on the environment, and thus improving, let's say, our coexistence with the earth and nature as such. So thank you very much for having me. I hope we'll have more opportunities in the future. And as Ben, just like Ben, I hope Benedetta will share my contacts with you all. It's nearly 1 a.m. Here in New Zealand. So we wish you all the best for the rest of the symposium, and willing to take, if you have any further will to get in touch and connect, please do so by all means. Thank you very much.
We can't hear from the room.
Not sure after my intervention who was to speak next. Maybe some guidance from the room would be welcomed.
In any case,
You can hear now?
Now you can hear, yes. Thank you.
ok.
Yes.
Come hai fatto?
Don't worry.
Okay. Okay, so there was an issue with the micro. We are very sorry. We kept talking, but nobody listened. Nobody heard us from online. In any case, please refer back to the Maori communities that you are working with, that it's a honor for us to work with you and your communities in these sustainable development efforts. And yeah, we are really impressed by your work there, and we are sorry to hear what Ben just told us, but we are here working together with you to reach a better future for us all. Now I open the floor to discussion, and then we will go back to the online people. I know that Lucas is online, and also from Fukuoka, Dinara is online, but let us give us the floor to the room now, and then we go back to online, okay? Lucas and Dinara, please, a bit of patience. Dinara, I know it's night there, but just let us take a couple of questions from the room. Who is willing to talk? From the room.
Yeah, not
Yes.
only question, but also consideration,
Yes. Comments.
aspiration,
Yeah.
comments.
There is a comment there. I
two
think.
microphones.
Okay, perfect.
When you take the floor, please,
Hello.
can you present yourself?
Okay. I'm Jacob Mapara, Chino University of Technology in...
Hey, maybe try this one.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jacob Mapara, Chino University of Technology in Zimbabwe. We have what we refer to as the Southern African Tangible Cultural Heritage platform, which comprises 7 countries. Zimbabwe, of course, is the host country. Then there's Eswatini, formerly Swaziland, Botswana, Zambia, Malawi, and Namibia. South Africa was left out because it hasn't at least signed the convention, it hasn't ratified it. Mozambique is technically, in quotations, referred to as Lusophone. I don't know why African countries have to be labeled along European languages. I think there's some other politics there. Well, my responsibility, unfortunately, was left to Sullivan. Maybe the issue is what has been the impact of colonialism and capitalism on ICH, on the, again, in quotations, the ICH of the host communities. I think that's the issue that he basically was talking about when he said the new government is now sort of putting aside the Waitan agreement treaty. So there is that insight that I think I got from his presentation. Thank you.
Thank you to you. I don't know if someone wants to reply or to add. Who wants? Yes, Joanna?
Okay, thank you. I'm Ioana from Romania. I just, when I see this topic, and it seems like obviously it's an important topic that comes around when we talk about this convention and other conventions, cultural conventions of UNESCO, is that it's a very big issue, very complex, and how can we approach it from an individual country level perspective or as scholars? And of course, being so complex, we have, I guess my approach is that we have to start from grassroots, as our New Zealand colleagues basically kind of gave us this insight, because we cannot solve all the problems of humanity, which is the future of humanity, by going from the high level of engagement. We have to engage from the grassroots. So for example, in my case, I always consider myself a middleman, middlewoman, but the concept is only it's not very politically correct, a broker or an intermediary between these communities who are living heritage bearers, basically, who are actually having a type of activity which is in a great harmony with nature, and they are actually an example, maybe they are a best practice for how sustainable development goals should be achieved. And that's how I represent them to people who actually can take action at a higher level for sustainable development goals. So I explain that the connection between living heritage and sustainable development goals is the connection between the micro level because this is what living heritage is, communities, people, individuals, and the macro level, which is, the future of all of us. And I explained to people who are engaged in the big issues of our planet that if we don't start from the micro level, we cannot solve the big issues. That's my approach on the topic, which is not a scholarly approach necessarily. It's a practical, community-based approach as we work with this convention. So I think that my question to you is, how can we do that as professionals, as scholars, to go as close as possible to the agency of living heritage bearers and explain to them the impact that they could have. It's just an average, small communities, close-knit communities, towards something that is so complex and important for all of us. So, thank you.
Yes, please.
Hello everyone, my name is Leena Marsio. I work for the Finnish Heritage Agency. I'm the focal point of Finland, celebrating 10th anniversary with the convention. Many of you know, but not everyone, we have a project called LIVIND, Living Heritage, as a resource for the Northern Dimension region. So we've been working 2 years now with a theme around living heritage and sustainable development with 9 countries, Nordic and Baltic, and then also Poland. We've had a series of webinars and online workshops, and we've been funding pilots, and we also have a research component where Anita and Harriet and Kristin Kuutma are all involved. And we have, to continue where Jana was left, so sort of how to take the Agenda 2030 into the grassroots level. What does it mean in concrete in the grassroots level? And I think it's really important that we take it both from this sort of political level into very grassroots, because there are so many things that the crafters or the storytellers or those people who work with horses or children or with anything. So we are trying to make these examples visible. So if you haven't heard yet of Living and you're not on our mailing list, please come to Finland in the hall. I'm very happy to tell you. We've been also working with different kind of tools. If you don't have the wheel chart yet, I'll be happy to share it with you. So how to help communities to understand better what are the connections of their own work, of their own practice into all of the 4-dimension culture, of course, included. So, but on the idea of the network, it would be wonderful if you could connect us all into one network to exchange more on sustainability. Thank you.
Edbisan, please. Tiago, if you can hear us, you can share also the slide.
Yes.
I think this would be a wonderful introduction to the slides that I'm going to share. The question was, how do we reach to the micro level of local communities? And I'm going to present a few slides of pictures of local communities and what are some of the little initiatives that we worked with them in order to enable them to better continue developing and sustaining their cultural heritage. So Tiago, if you hear us and can put up the slides, please.
Tiago? Can you share?
So in case if we couldn't share the slides, we have multiple approaches to deal with local communities, starting from the capacity building, working with individuals who are the heads of, or here it is. Thank you very much. If we can move to the next slide, please. Oh, now how can you tell them?
Can you see the slides?
No, unfortunately.
I am sharing it. I don't know why it's not.
No, we know why. But
Yes.
Maybe because you are talking, so maybe you have to share it by the computer of the person who's talking.
No
Maybe-
problem. No need for the
Don't worry,
slides.
Tiago.
Don't
You
worry.
try to share in any case and add this
Okay.
on. Okay, don't worry.
Thank you. So we have worked with local communities, starting with their raised awareness of the inscribed elements. For example, the element of al-Gatt al-Asiri, which is the murals painted around the walls of the living rooms. The ladies of the house are now using natural pigments to color their homes, and then they're teaching each other how to prepare those pigments, helping definitely in the environmental sustainability. The frauds of the palm trees, which is a different element inscribed at the palm trees, have been used to make baskets. The bulb of the tree has been used to prepare. Exactly. So almost not a single piece of the palm tree or the frond is wasted. If you can see the picture of this is actually the middle picture. It's actually an empty, what do we call it in English? Bullet. It's been used, filled with lead, and then the hair of the tail of a horse, and then used as a painting brush. So from war, creating beauty. The lady on the left is also a sadu weaver. The sadu is the lawn that is woven to make pillows or to decorate the home. She's also using natural dyes and the hair of the wool of the sheep to produce those thin lines to weave her creations. So yes, those people who are part of their individual local communities do share that knowledge with other community members, and this is what we're trying to facilitate as governmental entities, to help them have a proper place to share their knowledge through apprenticeship programs, through giving them funds to be able to create those workshops, to be able even to travel to other local places where the practice is also present, and to share that knowledge with other people. So with that being said, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you also, Tiago. You can stop the sharing the slide. I don't know if Dinara from Japan, I don't know if she's connected.
Yes, I'm here.
Yes, thank you very much. You can take the floor. What's the time there?
I mean, it's not so late, so it's fine.
Not so late? Okay.
Someone want to take the floor, but I'm also okay.
Thank you. Go ahead.
So, should I continue, or anyone else can do?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Then, yeah. So everyone can hear me, I hope. Okay, fine. So, yeah. Greetings, esteemed participants. It's really an honor to join in today's discussion, representing Kyushu University from Japanese University as a PhD student on the Faculty of Law. And also actually a member of the local company called Republic, what is kind of a think-do tank company, designing sustainable innovation ecosystem for the local communities and companies. So today actually wanted to just briefly highlight the Japanese experience in developing mechanisms to protect intangible cultural heritage within the context of historic urban landscapes, what I hope might be exactly also helpful to the discussion of how, for example, the scholars might be involved in the designing the mechanisms for the ICH and sustainable development, as these Japanese existing mechanisms already has contributed to the recognition of the crucial role of ICH in both governmental structures and among local citizens, fostering the idea of sustainable development. So besides already existing highly effective measures to preserve its intangible cultural legacy through a comprehensive legal system introduced by the Law of Protection of Cultural Properties in Japan, which includes categorization, registration, financial support, and maintenance of, by experts, as well as the unique contribution by organizing the institutional holders and holding groups of the ICH. In 2008, there was a law on historic urban development introduced, what includes the system helping to recognize the importance of establishing a holistic mechanism of managing and intangible aspects in the regions for sustaining natural resources, protecting biodiversity, strengthening social fabric inclusively, and more. So just pointing the main changes what this law initiated related to the ICH and its role in sustainable development are firstly, first time there was a comprehensive definition of the historic urban landscape, pointing the key role of the ICH in forming its buildings of high historical value, their surrounding urban environments, and good urban environments that integrate people's activities based on the unique histories and traditions of local communities. Was kind of first time introducing this kind of definition in the legal system in Japan, and what turned a lot of things differently. Secondly, the opportunity to formulate the policy, protection mechanisms, ways of utilization of the heritage through formulating thorough plan by all stakeholders. What is also kind of a new system because almost everyone kind of like all the stakeholders should participate in designing this plan, local governments, local communities, local scholars, local experts, and practitioners should be involved in designing the plan. And also, this plan includes kind of specific hard projects related to the tangible heritage and soft projects related to the intangible heritage. What protects and what will be partially financed by the Japanese government or might help to get some tax reductions and other financial support. And there are already more than 80 cities who formulated the plans and who got approval of these plans and which are effectively working. And actually, there's even a possibility to get a possibility to design one, like the second stage of the plan. So there are already cities who are working and making the real projects for more than 5 and 10 years. And thirdly, there's also introduced the system of the categorization of the priority zones, what is defined by the plan that serve as land for building designated as important cultural properties, important tangible folk culture, historic cities, places of scenic beauty or natural monuments, especially related to the ICH, like living areas, agriculture, forestry and fishing villages, industrial towns, shrine areas, and more. So these introduced mechanisms by this law not only broaden opportunities for preserving and utilizing local intangible cultural heritage, but also established a collaborative system among stakeholders. This facilitates learning about local heritage, its role in fostering sustainable community connections, and its relationship with local resources. So it can be also kind of compared with the existing concept of the 15-minute city, popular in European countries, what finds a Japanese alternative in the framework created by this law. So the European model, for example, mostly focuses on establishing infrastructures, when the Japanese approach incorporates also food production, drawing from agricultural fields, rivers, and forests within this designated priority zones of the cities, what help to increase local businesses based on the traditional knowledge and make the connection within communities from young to elder generations even stronger, contributing also into the increasing the interest of big cities, citizens to relocate to the smaller cities with a richer understanding and approaches to protect and utilize local resources, including ACH as well. So this unique landscape also intervenes with the intangible heritage practices, fostering lifestyles deeply connected to nature and environmental respect. Of course, there are also still aspects of the system what might need improvement as training specialists for the local governments responsible for the formulation and application of the plans, lack of possible inheritance of the intangible heritage, involvement of the various stakeholders on the stage of formulating the plan, but it can be considered as a big step toward establishing effective system for ICH working for the sustainable development in Japan, and maybe also might be also kind of a role model for other countries as well. This is all from me. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. Maria?
Yes. Thank you very much for the
microphone.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm Maria from the Spanish delegation, and here are my colleagues from the Spanish delegation. And in our case, we have worked in tangible cultural heritage from quite a few years ago. We were one of the first countries to make the Mediterranean Diet with Italy, Greece, and Cyprus. And we really believe that ICH and development and sustainable development has to work very closely. So we do some nominations filers. The one is transformance that is, of course, related with sustainable development. And at the same time, this year, as we were a member of we have the Presidents of Europe, we make a book that is called the Green Book for the Green Book for the Sustainability of Cultural Heritage. But we understand it's a tool for management with sustainable in 3 lines: the economy is sustainable, environment is sustainable, and also social sustainable. We think that these 3 lines has to be all of them together. And we make this green book for the stakeholders and, of course, for the community, because one of the biggest problems for ICH is that the community sometimes cannot manage to live for his own ICH. It is very difficult for the people who do transhumance to have a good quality of life, living only of transhumance. Not only transhumance, there are so many other ICH declare that the big problem is that the community has to do another kind of life, and they do intangible cultural heritage only used as for pleasure, and it's very important to make safeguard plans. That's something that I think as stakeholders and management of cultural heritage, we are not the community, we should try to help them to make these safeguarding plans, and we should try to help them to live from this own element. I think the countries that we have ratified, and we have so many inscriptions, we should try to work more on the line of best practice. And with this best practice, we should try to work on these safeguarding plans to help them to live with this element. And with that, I think we will be able to help the sustainable development. So that's why I wanted to say. And I also wanted to ask, I don't know if they are here, the one from that they spoke about the Maori culture, what other country has ratified the convention already?
Thank you very much, Maria. May I suggest you also, if we want to share the green book that you elaborate, because I had the opportunity to share the file. Because I have the opportunity to read, and it's very interesting.
I just forgot, we are going to do a site event this afternoon, 5:45, and we will show you a small video about this book, and we will show you the webpage where you can look at the book and you can have it there. We haven't printed them, and we only print a few of them because, of course, if we are speaking about sustainable development, we cannot have printed the book. But this afternoon?
Send me the file, I can share by email with other participants. Yes, it's a very relevant experience of integrating cultural policies and environmental policies. So, Lucas Lidzinski. Lucas, you are online. He is professor in Australia, but is not in Australia. So, you are not the right to take the floor at the beginning, but Lucas?
Thank you. Luigi, thank you, everyone. It's been wonderful to hear to your experiences and your voices. As Luigi mentioned, it's not the middle of the night for me, so it's okay for me to just sit back and listen a lot, and it's been wonderful to do that. What I wanted to mention in this connection between sustainable development and intangible heritage, and when we bring the Anthropocene into the mix, is a bit different than the conversation we've been having so far. And I just wanted to put it out there as something for us to think about. So the conversation I've heard so far has gone into directions, right? One which is the sustainable development of the heritage in itself, right? And how sustainable development helps intangible cultural heritage and the sustainability of intangible cultural heritage. That's wonderful. It's not what I'm particularly interested in. What I am particularly today, anyway, what I am interested in today is a second mode, which is how intangible cultural heritage helps us think about sustainability more broadly, right? So from ICH onto the broader kind of world. And I think there are, of course, very obvious connections there. And as you all know, right, part of the definition of intangible cultural heritage is that we cannot consider under international law something to be intangible cultural heritage unless it complies with the requirement for sustainable development. But I think there's a trap in the way a lot of us tend to do that, and myself included. And that's something I've been thinking a little bit more about lately, and that's a bit of doom and gloom. But we tend, the moment we say that intangible cultural heritage needs to be sustainable, we sometimes can trap communities into what one might call ethno development, which is the idea that it's okay for you to have your own culture as long as it is sustainable. But we don't have the same levers to pull to other sectors of the economy and society. So what we have is that we end up putting an extra burden on communities when they're trying to pursue their intangible heritage, to be a role model for the world, to have this burden of sustainability placed on their shoulders more than on everyone else. And I think it's wonderful that communities use their intangible heritage as exemplars of how we can live more sustainably. And I definitely don't want to dismiss that, but I think that's only the beginning of the conversation. But because of our own biases and the limitations of our own roles, sometimes the effect of how we do it is to get everyone else off the hook and saying, look, communities practicing and perpetuating and revitalizing their intangible heritage, they're doing a lot of the sustainable development work. They're going to save us from ourselves. So us on the outside, we maybe don't need to work as hard. So there's a warning here for how hard we push on this idea of intangible cultural heritage as an exemplar of sustainable development and of sustainable living. And I think what we might want to do instead is to show the world how intangible cultural heritage is not an exemplar of sustainable living necessarily, but an exemplar of adaptation and mitigation of what's coming in the Anthropocene. And that's something that I know UNESCO has been started dealing with in the context of intangible cultural heritage and climate change, which is one of the three big axes of reform of the intangible heritage system regime. The first one of them being the other two being intangible heritage in urban context, and of course intangible cultural heritage and economics, which is up for discussion and adoption hopefully this week there in Botswana. But when we talk about intangible cultural heritage and climate change, we tend to be very praiseworthy again of this mode of existence of intangible cultural heritage as a way that does not cause further climate change, and that's great. But I would love to see more push on how intangible cultural heritage can teach us to live with the effects of climate change, because I think that strategically positions intangible cultural heritage and positions communities, most importantly, of course, to make a real contribution to what's coming. So instead of staying in this congratulatory mode of look at how sustainable communities are, we create a real lever for communities to become much more central as part of the policy, legal, and political responses to the Anthropocene that we're all facing. So that's what I wanted to kind of put out for discussion in the room. Thank you for your time. It's wonderful to be among all of you, even virtually, and I really wish I was there.
Thank you very much, Lucas. Anna, and then Janet. And then if you want to take the floor, tell me, Leonce. Okay. Okay, Harriet. Leonce, Harriet. Other? No? Luba. Okay, Luba is the last one. Okay. Please.
Okay, so hello everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Hanna Schreiber. I'm from Poland. Greetings to Lucas. Online, we've been cooperating for a long time, and it's a pleasure to see at least online many colleagues. Obviously, this is a very hard topic, and the same as Joanna, I was starting to reflect on what it means, sustainable development, what it means, especially Anthropocene. And I thought that I will make a thought experiment here, and I will speak against Anthropocene in the 3-minute intervention. So just bear with me, but try to think about what we can do more. So I was thinking that indeed we all believe that the greatest accomplishment of the 2003 Convention is putting communities, groups, and individuals into the center. But this is, again, a very human-centric approach. If we look on what we do from the planetary perspective, this is not a revolution at all. The revolution would be to erase human being from the center. So what I would like to postulate here is to de-anthropocentralize the Anthropocene discourse. That is to think what will happen if, in the definition of ICH, alongside communities, groups, and individuals, we will add and other feeling and thinking creatures. So my idea is that climate change, COVID, are things that are not only caused by human beings. The whole world stopped during COVID, not because of a human agent, but non-human agent. We were unable to control. It was controlling us. And in that sense, I think that this discussion about sustainable development, if it still keeps human agents in the center, will not be sustainable at all. And so my provocative invitation would be, again, to de-anthropocentralize also ICH discourse. ICH will not exist without nature and without non-human agents. We will not have textiles, we will not have food, culinary traditions, we will not have anything here. So I think that putting communities, groups, and individuals in the center is still not revolutionary enough. And maybe we should stop thinking about Anthropocene and thinking about de-Anthropocene and post-Anthropocene era. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anna.
Sorry, can I just, because
Lily.
There's one initiative which is
Janet,
called,
please.
there's an initiative which is One Health that has this approach, putting actually all living creatures on the same level as humans for health. So we could look towards that example.
Janet.
Thank you very much. And Lucas, hello. Sorry, my name is Janet Blake. I'm from a university in... Oh, okay. I don't want to be so arrogant to assume that. Lucas, thank you very much for those words. I think it's very important to remind ourselves of this fact that it's a great temptation when working in this field, when seeking to influence government policy, which many of us try to do, to say, look, it's great, this is really going to help you with your dealing with Agenda 2030, your response to the Sustainable Development Goals, etc., which is a strong argument that we have to bump ICH up the agenda, the priorities of government. But exactly, there is a danger of instrumentalizing it, and as Lucas was saying. And I think this also reminds us how important it is to get through the message, however we can, that the role of the state party in this treaty is rather different from most heritage treaties. It's predominantly a facilitator role. This treaty asks the state party to step back and to say, okay, these are what the individuals, groups, and communities are doing with regard to their own heritage, safeguarding it, and to find ways of supporting that. Or, like the human rights approach, not preventing it, which is just as important. So, I mean, I wanted to just say that in response to Lucas. And with regard to the wider issue of the Anthropocene, beyond Hannah's very profound words, I would just like also to posit the fact that we're on the edge of having to even reconsider the whole system of international treaties. In other words, when our physical boundaries of our territories are shifting, how do you operate an international treaty system founded on territoriality? So, I mean, I don't think we can answer that question today, but it's in the title of your symposium, so I thought I'd just raise that, really just to say we are facing exceptionally profound questions here today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Janet. A lot of questions. Léonce. Léonce, if you want to speak in French, as you prefer.
Someone can cut it for me in English. En français, ça allait beaucoup m'arranger en tout cas. Je peux en français? Ok, donc certainement quelqu'un pourra... Ok, donc merci beaucoup pour ce sujet très très ouvert qui parle donc du PCI et du développement durable. C'est quelque chose de très très intéressant et ça pourrait faire l'objet d'un mois de débat parce que le thème est assez intéressant. Mais juste pour aborder la question spécifiquement au niveau de l'Afrique et du Burkina en particulier, et la question du développement durable, le PCI se pose parce que nous avons changé de paradigme. Et qu'est-ce qui se passe si je pars sur la base des évidences archéologiques qu'on avait, et c'est que 8000 ans avant Jésus-Christ déjà, les gens ont commencé à habiter l'espace. Ils étaient en harmonie, ils arrivaient à bien gérer. La question donc du développement durable ne se posait pas parce qu'ils étaient en parfaite harmonie avec leur environnement. À partir du 21e siècle, il y a eu une ouverture. Le 20e, 21e siècle, il y a eu une ouverture. Et le problème n'est pas au niveau de l'ouverture, mais c'est comment est-ce que désormais on regarde le développement. Par exemple, si je prends les objectifs et les ODD, l'objectif 2 dit que zéro faim. Aujourd'hui, si quelqu'un ne mange pas 3 fois, on dit qu'il n'est pas développé. Mais si je prends par exemple mon exemple, dans ma communauté, les repas les plus importants, c'est le petit déjeuner. Quand vous vous levez le matin, vous avez mangé, même si vous ne mangez plus le reste de la journée, ce n'est plus un problème. Mais si on vient et qu'on me dit désormais que donc je dois manger 3 fois, pour qu'on puisse me classer dans un autre domaine, en ce moment, je suis obligé de ponctionner davantage dans la nature pour pouvoir le faire. Et il se pose un sérieux problème. On est obligé de couper les arbres davantage pour pouvoir manger. On est obligé de creuser davantage. Donc, on voit que c'est le changement donc, de paradigme, de référent, qui est l'un des grands problèmes qui fait que le patrimoine culturel immatériel des communautés est en déphasage donc, avec les choses. Et le second aspect également, est-ce que s'il y a quelqu'un qui va traduire, je laisse traduire d'abord avant de continuer.
Merci beaucoup.
Okay, so basically it's a bit too long to translate, but basically what he said is that he is observing a change of paradigm where you are supposed to eat 3 times per day, and to meet this standard, you whereas, for instance, in his village, was it your village? If you have a big breakfast, then you are fine for the rest of the day. You don't expect to necessarily eat 3 times per day, and that's fine, and that's in harmony with nature and with culture, as far as I understand. And so, and then we are at that point.
Donc, merci beaucoup. Grazie mille. So I will try to finish in English, even if it's very bad. And so the second aspect, for instance, when we speak about, we still speak about development, you will see that for our African countries, we say that people have more than $1. So if you have more than $1, it means that you are less developed. But what is the problem? You have some people, they had beans, they are millet in their flags. They really don't need 50 cents. Because they are all of that. But they will say that you have to have that to be considered as developed. So it means that why we are doing this, the fact that we are trying to have the same referent for all the community, that is the real problem who come the problem of ICA development, because people are obliged to change to change practice in order to be in line with the new referendum. That is the most problem. And I think that we, as an expert and facilitator, we have to see how, in someone spoke about macro level, we have to see how we can try to contextualize how we are working in this way. I think that we can reach what we really need. Bon, voilà ce que je pouvais dire. Désolé ce soir parce que c'est un mauvais anglais, mais la prochaine fois je pourrai m'améliorer un peu.
Merci beaucoup, Léonce. La question que tu as présentée est très importante. Et Harriet, please. You are the last one because after you we have to close, and Benedetta. No, Luba, I'm sorry. You are my chair, you know, so you can do what you want. Harriet, please.
Okay, thank you. I'll be very brief. My name's Harriet Deacon, and I'm sorry I came a bit late, but I was just very inspired by this idea that Lucas was saying we have to differentiate exactly what we're talking about in terms of the relationship of the SDGs, for example, or sustainable development in general, to ICH. And we found that with the analysis of the periodic reports, the section on sustainable development is not so much about how ICH practice contributes to sustainable development, which is one question, but how safeguarding under the convention gives added value to that process. And I think that the danger that we've got at the moment is we have only positive stories really circulating under the convention. And we need to also talk about the sort of limits of growth or limits of change or whatever. But we have such a weak discussion under the convention about innovation and change. And we also have, I think, a weak discussion about where things are going wrong. And so that makes this discussion around mitigations very difficult to have at the moment. So I would like to sort of put forward the suggestion that we need some of this underlying work to be done before we can do what Lucas was proposing. And we need to be very aware of the biased nature of the data that we have under the convention at present.
Thank you very much. Luba.
Thank you very much. I try to be brief, and it's complicated to speak about something after so many ideas presented. They are so interested. So maybe I'll just make a suggestion for our next meeting that we could organize, and I would like to share the idea about how the communities are put in the center of all our efforts,
connected with the Convention 2003 implementation, but on the other side often feel abandoned by us, by the governments, by the state parties, by local governments. So, and my question would be, as being often, as Joanna said, in the role of cultural broker, and thank Mark Jacobs for this term I use very often, is how to engage all the stakeholders, or we could maybe share good practices, how you manage to talk to your local governments, to your governments, to other stakeholders who are responsible for the well-being of our communities, because they are the most important thing, but they are somehow dependent on the decisions of the legislation or the lawmakers in general. So maybe that would be an idea to go with and to share for the next time. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Luba. So for closing, please, Benedetta.
Okay, thank you, everybody. We have like 2 minutes to close. I will be very, very brief. Thank you so much.
Benedetta, I didn't deliver my speech.
Lo facciamo parlare?
Hello?
Thank you, Annie. Thanks.
Yeah.
Very briefly, because we have to close at 2:20.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much for hosting me in this symposium.
Annie?
In fact, what I would like to summarize my speech, that if we turn to intangible cultural heritage and sustainable development, I would like to stress that the allocation of the operational directives in the Convention on clarifying the relationship between the concepts of ICH and sustainable development with its social, economic, and environmental dimensions, as well as peace building, has added a new qualitative understanding of the objectives regarding intangible cultural heritage. In fact, ICH is considered a cultural capital and an important cultural resource. It plays a role in how skills and abilities are transmitted from generation to generation through embodiment, where the social rules of society are passed from one body to another, from others to youth, sometimes through unconscious and implicit imitation and transmission, capable of calculating the complete cosmology and morality, leading to form cultural and social identity.
Sorry, honey, we cannot hear anything, and I'm sure there is a connection problem, and also we have to close. I'm very, very sorry. So, but thank you for willing to talk. Thank you for coming here. We are so lucky to have you with us. Very briefly, there are many, many questions. We take from the floor some ideas, the idea to continue working in this network. This is a network. So we shall continue working. Probably in 6 months we will meet again online for those of you that are willing to join the network. Probably we aim to work on safeguarding ICH for climate change in a broader sense, in the way towards a de-Anthropocene era. So maybe this can be a kind of title of this network, but if you have other ideas, please feel free. We can work collecting in those 6 months best practices, as was said, but also bad practices, because from mistakes we learn the most. So if we have bad practices, then maybe we can think about mitigation strategies, and we can learn probably more. So not only best but also bad. And if you have any material that you would like us to share, please send it to us. We will share materials. And also any questions, please feel free to share. And that's it. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much also to our colleagues online. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Thank you. Next time. Ciao, ciao, Pierluigi.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye to nice time. See you soon.
This is very interesting. And working directly as a government agency
Bye
and with peoples and then trying to mitigate, like how to help Yes.
Thank you very much for coming.
Thank
Thanks
you.
a lot.
Thank you. Thank you.
Kirk, we will see. Yes. Now there is the